Hello, I'm Alice. The condo's large windows flood the living room with soft Seattle light, even on a cloudy day. It's the kind of place that made sense when Matt and I bought it, a 3-bedroom unit in a neighborhood where the mailboxes gleam and every car in the lot is spotless. We planned for this space to grow with us. Now, with a baby on the way, it feels like the walls are already closing in. I'm 4 months pregnant, and this baby, my first, is relentless. I can barely keep food down. Sleep happens in fragments. The nausea? Constant. Matt tries to help, he's thoughtful like that, but his remote work schedule keeps him locked away 3 days a week in the office-turned-nursery. Software architecture demands focus, and lately, I can't help but envy his quiet retreat. Grace, my little sister, arrived in September, suitcases in hand, full of excitement about starting university here. She's 21, all energy and confidence, the kind that makes her look even younger than she is. It's just for a little while, she said when she moved in. And who could argue? Seattle's housing market is a nightmare, especially for a broke college student. We made it work at first. Matt cleared a corner of the office for her desk. I gave up space in the closet for her clothes. She was thrilled, snapping pictures of her cozy room to share with her friends. It felt good, being able to help her. Family is family, right? But as the weeks crawl on, the logistics start to pinch. Grace has the smallest bedroom, but she gravitates to the main areas of the house, my space. The living room becomes her study zone. The bathroom that Matt and I share turns into her preferred mirror for makeup sessions. And while I can't fault her excitement about college, her energy fills every corner, leaving me feeling more exhausted than ever. Matt tries to smooth things over. She's young, he says one night while washing dishes. It's an adjustment for her too. I nod because what else is there to do? But there's this gnawing sense of imbalance I can't shake. I remind myself it's temporary. She'll find her footing, make friends, and maybe even move into student housing. For now, we're all just trying to get through it. I rub my belly, the baby shifting, a reminder of what's coming. I want this home to feel ready, calm, safe. But Grace's arrival has introduced a new layer of chaos I wasn't prepared for. Is she settling in okay? Mom's voice crackles through the phone. I can picture her at the kitchen table, mug of tea in hand, ready to dissect my life. She's fine, I say, trying to keep my tone light. Busy with classes. Good. You'll be glad to have her there. Family's what matters most, Alice. You'll see. She'll be a big help when the baby comes. I murmur agreement, though something about the statement doesn't sit right. Grace means well, sure, but she's not here to help. She's here because she needs a place. And if I'm being honest, I'm starting to wonder if I should have said yes at all. I hang up, stare out the window. Rain dots the glass. Matt emerges from the office, stretching his arms. He's got that tired but satisfied look he gets after finishing a big project. How's Grace doing with school? He asks, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. Good, I reply, keeping it vague. His brow furrows slightly, but he doesn't press. The house feels smaller with 3 of us here. It's not just the space, it's the rhythms, the routines. Things are shifting, and I can't quite pin down how I feel about it. Grace's laughter rings out from her room, light and carefree. I rub my belly again, this time out of habit. There's a storm building, but I can't tell if it's in the air or just in my head. It's small things at first. Grace starts making Matt lunch. Not for me, not for us, just for him. Wednesdays and Fridays, when he works from home, she appears in the kitchen right around noon, humming to herself while she slices avocado or grills chicken. You didn't have to do this, Matt says the first time. His voice is polite, a little awkward. "It's no big deal," she chirps. "You're working so hard in there. Someone has to take care of you." I'm on the couch, scrolling through my phone, trying not to read into it. Grace has always been thoughtful. That's all this is, I tell myself. Except it doesn't stop at lunch. The next time I head to the laundry room, her basket is empty, but Matt's things are folded neatly on the counter, shirts pressed, socks paired. My own clothes are still a damp heap in the dryer. I walk back to the living room, trying to keep my breathing steady. "Grace," I call out casually. "Did you do Matt's laundry?" She pokes her head around the corner, smiling. "Yeah. He left it in the washer, so I figured I'd finish it for him." Her tone is so breezy it throws me off. It's hard to argue with someone who sounds so innocent, like they're doing you a favor. I smile back, though it feels tight on my face. She's not doing this for me. Other things start to stand out. She has her own bathroom, tiny but functional, with an ensuite shower in her room. Yet she's constantly in ours, leaving her toiletries scattered across the counter, her long blonde hair clogging the drain. When I bring it up, she laughs it off. "Your bathroom's brighter. The mirror's better for makeup." I let it go because I'm too tired to fight. My body's waging war with itself daily, every smell, every taste, every movement reminding me I'm not in control. If it were just the bathroom, I could deal. But then there's the clothes. One Friday morning, Matt steps out of the office to grab coffee. Grace is at the dining table, flipping through her psychology notes in a tank top and shorts so small they might as well be underwear. I watch him stop mid-step, blink, and then awkwardly avert his eyes as he pours his coffee. "Grace," I say, trying to keep my tone even, "do you think you could wear something a little less casual in the common areas?" She raises an eyebrow, not looking up from her textbook. "It's hot in here." Matt clears his throat. "I can adjust the thermostat." "It's fine," she says, shrugging. "You guys are so uptight." It's not fine, but I don't have the energy to argue. Matt heads back to his office without a word, and I sit there, feeling invisible. When I bring it up to Mom later, hoping for backup, she waves me off. Grace has always been carefree. "Don't take it personally. You're pregnant, honey, your hormones are making everything seem worse than it is." I hang up and sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm overreacting. But something doesn't sit right. Matt notices, too, even if he doesn't say much. He's quieter these days, distracted. When I press him, he brushes it off as work stress. But the air in the house feels different, heavier. One night, as we're getting ready for bed, I mention Grace's behavior again. "Does she ever make you uncomfortable?" He hesitates, his hands pausing mid-button on his pajama shirt. "Uncomfortable how?" "I don't know," I mumble, picking at the duvet. "The way she's around you. The lunches. The laundry. Her outfits." Matt sighs and sits down beside me. "Alice, she's your sister. I don't think she means anything by it." "Maybe not," I say, though the words feel hollow. "But doesn't it bother you?" He thinks for a moment, then shrugs. "I guess I've noticed some things. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it." I nod, but the unease lingers. I'm not imagining it. I can't be. The next morning, Grace waltzes through the living room, her phone pressed to her ear, laughing at something her friend says. She glances at me on the couch, her smile wide and carefree, like nothing's wrong. But something is wrong. I can feel it in the way Matt avoids meeting my eyes and in the way Grace's presence fills the room, squeezing out the air. And suddenly, I'm not so sure this is temporary anymore. I wake up to nausea, the usual start to my day. The house is quiet, but Matt's office door is cracked open, and I can hear his keyboard clacking. Grace's door is shut, her music faint but steady. It's rare for me to take a day off work, but today, I couldn't face the commute. My body feels heavy, every movement slower than it should be. I stay in bed longer than I planned, propped up on pillows, listening to the distant hum of the city through our double-pane windows. Around noon, I hear Grace's voice. It's light, teasing. She's in the kitchen, talking to Matt. "You're such a catch," she says, her tone playful, almost flirty. "I hope I can find someone like you someday. Caring, smart, patient." There's a pause. I strain to hear Matt's response, but his voice is low, muffled. "Not everyone gets lucky with a wife," Grace adds, her voice dripping with something I can't quite place. "Some people settle, you know." My heart pounds. It's not the baby, not hormones, it's anger. I swing my legs off the bed, nausea forgotten, and head for the door. When I step into the hallway, Matt's standing by the fridge, holding a glass of water. His face is tight, eyes darting to mine like a lifeline. Grace is leaning against the counter, smiling, her hair pulled into a messy bun that makes her look younger, more innocent than she is. "What was that?" I ask, my voice sharper than I intended. Grace blinks at me, all wide-eyed surprise. "What was what?" "You know what," I snap. "What you just said to Matt." She tilts her head, feigning confusion. "I was joking." "Relax, Alice. You're so tense lately." "Tense?" I repeat, my voice rising. "You don't think it's inappropriate to say things like that to my husband?" Matt steps forward, raising a hand like a referee trying to break up a fight. "Alice, let's not do this right now." "No," I cut him off, glaring at Grace. "You've been crossing lines since you moved in. The lunches, the laundry, the way you parade around this house. It's not okay." Grace's expression hardens, her smile vanishing. "Wow," she says, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is this what pregnancy does to people? Makes them paranoid and insecure?" The words hit like a slap. Matt moves between us, his tone firm. "Grace, stop." Her eyes flick to him, and she shrugs. "I didn't mean anything by it. Alice is blowing this way out of proportion." "Am I?" I snap. "You've made dismissive comments about my pregnancy, taken over this house like it's yours, and now you're undermining my marriage? How is that not intentional?" Grace crosses her arms, leaning back against the counter. "You're reading too much into everything. I'm just trying to be helpful, but clearly, that's not appreciated." "Helpful?" Matt says, his voice sharper than I've ever heard it. "You're not being helpful, Grace. You're being disrespectful." Her jaw tightens, and for a moment, she looks genuinely stunned. Matt turns to me, his voice softening. "Alice, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to make things harder for you, but you're not imagining this. I've noticed it too. She's been making me uncomfortable for weeks." My stomach drops. Relief and anger collide, leaving me unsteady. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to cause tension," he says, running a hand through his hair. "But this isn't okay. She needs to hear that." Grace laughs, a bitter, hollow sound. "You're both ridiculous. I'm confident, that's all. Sorry if that threatens you." Matt exhales sharply, his patience clearly fraying. "This isn't confidence, Grace. It's disrespect. You need to start acting like a guest in this house, or find somewhere else to stay." Her face flushes, a mix of anger and embarrassment, but she doesn't say another word. She storms off to her room, slamming the door behind her. The silence that follows is deafening. Matt turns to me, his shoulders sagging. I'm sorry, he says quietly. I sink into one of the dining chairs, my hands trembling. I knew something was wrong, but I thought, maybe I was overreacting. You weren't, he says firmly. I should have said something sooner. The weight of the confrontation hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating. But for the first time in weeks, I feel like Matt and I are on the same side. We sit at the dining table that evening, Matt and I, the room dim except for the glow from the kitchen light. My hands rest on my growing belly, his fingers drum nervously on the wooden surface. The silence stretches long enough to make me question the decision we've already made, but then I catch his eye. He nods. We can't keep doing this, he says quietly. It's not healthy, for you, for us, or for her. I nod, my throat tight. I found a place, I managed to say. One of my coworkers knows an older woman near campus. She rents rooms to students. It's clean, affordable, and close enough for Grace to get to her classes. Matt takes a deep breath, looking relieved but hesitant. She's not going to take this well. She doesn't have to, I reply, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. She needs to go. We've given her enough. We decide Matt will talk to her. My voice is too raw, my patience worn too thin. The next morning, I watch him knock gently on Grace's door, his face set in that calm, resolute way he has when he's made up his mind. I can't hear the words exchanged, but I can hear her reaction. What? Her voice is sharp, incredulous. You're kicking me out? Matt keeps his voice low, steady, but Grace's tone rises, cutting through the walls. This is because of her, isn't it? She snaps. Alice can't handle having me here because she's jealous. I grip the counter in the kitchen, my nails digging into the wood. Jealous. The accusation stings more than it should. Matt steps into the kitchen a few minutes later, his face drawn. She's upset, he says simply. She's manipulative, I counter, my voice tight. She knew what she was doing, Matt. He nods, pressing his lips into a thin line. I gave her until the end of the month. She'll move into the new place. It should feel like a win, but instead, I feel the familiar pang of guilt settling in my chest. Grace's door remains shut for the rest of the day. When she does emerge, it's with a look I've never seen before, cold, distant, almost cruel. She ignores me completely, speaking only to Matt when necessary, her words clipped and formal. The manipulation starts small. She leaves passive-aggressive notes on the fridge, complaining about the house rules or asking Matt to clarify things he's already explained. She cries loudly in her room at night, ensuring we can hear her. You're not being fair, she says to Matt one morning as he heads to his office. I gave up so much to move here. And now you're abandoning me? He sighs, his voice weary. Grace, we're not abandoning you. You're an adult. This is part of growing up, being responsible for yourself. She scoffs, throwing up her hands. Responsible? I thought family was supposed to support each other. Family supports each other, I cut in, unable to stay silent any longer, but not at the cost of disrespect and boundaries. Her glare could cut glass. You've made your point, she says icily, before retreating to her room again. The days drag on, her hostility filling every corner of the condo. Matt and I cling to each other more tightly than ever, our bond solidifying under the weight of her anger. By the end of the month, Grace is gone. The relief is palpable, but the wounds she's left behind feel deep and fresh. For the first time in weeks, the condo is quiet again. The silence in the condo is almost disorienting. I stand in the kitchen, staring at the empty counter where Grace used to sit, stirring her coffee, throwing out casual comments that once felt harmless. The air feels lighter, but my chest is heavy, the kind of weight that lingers after a storm. She left her sweater, Matt says, walking into the room with a faded blue cardigan draped over his arm. Leave it, I say. My voice is sharper than I intended. I soften. She'll probably ask for it when she calms down. He sets it on the counter without a word. I glance at him, seeing the exhaustion etched into his features. This whole ordeal has drained him as much as it has me, though he rarely lets it show. She'll be fine, he says after a moment, like he's trying to convince himself. I nod, but my mind spins with doubt. Grace didn't exactly leave quietly. Her last morning here was a barrage of accusations and passive-aggressive remarks. She called me controlling, jealous, cold. It hurt more than I care to admit. My mother called me that night. She's your sister, Mom said, her tone disapproving. How could you put her out like that? You should have found a way to make it work. I almost laughed, bitter and incredulous. Mom, she crossed every boundary we had. She was disrespectful to me, to Matt, to our home. What were we supposed to do? Let her keep driving a wedge between us? She's young, Mom replied, brushing it off. And you're hormonal. You're not thinking clearly. That word, hormonal, made my blood boil. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. Matt reaches for my hand now, pulling me from my thoughts. We did the right thing, he says firmly. For us. For the baby. I squeeze his hand, letting his steadiness anchor me. He's right. I know he's right. But the loss still stings. Grace and I were close once. She used to call me her role model, the big sister she looked up to. It's hard to reconcile that version of her with the person who turned our home into a battlefield. I miss her, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. In the days after she left, I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering if we could have handled it differently. But every time, I come back to the same conclusion: she forced our hand. The tension with Mom hasn't eased. She barely talks to me now, and when she does, it's clipped, full of unspoken judgment. Matt tells me to give it time, but I'm not sure how much time it'll take, or if it'll even help. The upside, if there is one, is that Matt and I are stronger than we've ever been. This experience forced us to confront things together, to stand as a united front. We've learned to communicate better, to trust each other more deeply. The condo feels like ours again. Peaceful. Safe. I sit on the couch that evening, rubbing my belly absent-mindedly. The baby kicks softly, a reminder of the future we're building. Grace's absence hurts, but it's a small price to pay for the security and love this home needs. I hope she finds her way. I hope she grows. And maybe, someday, we can rebuild what's been broken. But for now, I'm focused on what's here, Matt, our baby, and the life we're creating.